You're listening to Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions on product and business strategy. And now, here's your host, Bob Caporelli.
Welcome to another episode of Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions about product and business strategy. Real questions from real people in real companies, just like yours. Welcome back, strategy creators. Glad to have you back on another episode. I'm your host, Bob Caporelli from Strategy Generation Company. And before we start the show, I just want to encourage you to go check out some of the services that we offer. If you are interested in strategy training or workshops or resources, or even having someone come out and help you develop your strategy, go visit us at strategygeneration.com, and I'm sure we can be of service. But in the meantime, we want to make sure that we answer as many questions that you have on your mind as possible, which is the point of this podcast and accompanying blog. So make sure you go out to dearstrategy.net and check out the blog that we write with every podcast, including this one. And with that, I will get to the question, which is, Dear Strategy, how do you work or interact with your customers so you can get ahead of their needs and bring about the desired results? Now, little quiz for those of you who are regular listeners of the show. Which episodes have we talked about this before on? Well, there's been many. It's not really a quiz. I'm going to tell you, just recently here on episode 66, I talked about different ways that you can analyze customer needs. And then before that, on episode 44, I gave those same methodologies because I think they're so darn important. Give a little different twist on them, but still, those two episodes, we covered this. And then we've covered, finding out about customer needs, visiting your customers, spending more time with customers in any number of different episodes on the show. So Bob, with that said, why in the world would you then feature yet another question on the same darn thing? And there is a reason for it. One of the reasons is because I think this question doesn't just talk about, how do you get the needs, but also how do you interact with your customers? And it's that working with and interacting with the customers that I really wanted to address here. Again, I did address some of the techniques and methodologies of how you would interact with your customers back in episode 66 and episode 44. So go check those out and you'll see some of those techniques that I talk about. But what I really want to address here when we're talking about interaction is doing it at all, right? What I mean by this is one of the reasons we get so many questions on this, and I'm going to take you back to my experience facilitating training, working with companies, and even in my corporate life, we just don't spend enough time with customers. And so we're looking for that kind of magic potion, right? The silver bullet. How in the world do I get customer needs? And it's almost like we want to do it from our desks, but you can't. You can't get customer feedback from your desk. You do have to interact with them. You have to go out and talk to them. You have to go out and observe them. You have to go out and spend time with them in the field. And one of the reasons this is so difficult is because on the surface, at least, there's not like an immediate need to do it. In other words, there's no boss that's saying you have to do this. There's no one that's saying you have to deliver something, right? The only time you actually go out to visit customers as a business owner or a product manager is when you're going to make a sale, right? You want to try and get their money in some way. Let's be honest. And so there's an immediate need to do that. I need cash. I need business. I'm going to go out and talk to customers. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to them through the frame of, I want your business. But that's not the way you get the best customer feedback. The way you get customer feedback is spend time with them as buddies, right? And by that, I mean, don't go out with any preconceived notion of trying to sell them something or even develop something for them. Go out with them to just understand the way they're living, because you're interested. You're interested in the way they're doing things. You're interested in the way that they're using certain products. You're interested in how they're doing work. You're really interested in making their lives easier and better. And when you go out with that kind of an approach, you're going to uncover things that you never thought of and that they never would have told you about. And that's where you want to go. But doing that means that you have to take time out of your otherwise busy schedule and try and justify with some manager in your company, if you do work for a company, that I'm going to go spend time with customers with no real purpose. Okay. No real ulterior motive. Not going to try and sell to them. I'm just going to go out and watch them. I have yet to go into a company where that is 100% embraced, unfortunately. And that's the shame of it. I'll tell you where that is embraced in people that don't have companies yet, meaning that they don't work for anybody yet. And those are the products that end up on Kickstarter, right? Because it was people just hanging around with their buddies and uncovering stuff that they weren't trying to solve. And when they go and they find something, say, wow, I get passionate about this. I think I can make a difference. I think I can do something different. And they come up with the idea, they come up with a company, they put it on Kickstarter, and before you know it, they're a startup, right? Making millions. And they did that not because they had some ulterior motive to go out and make money somewhere, but because they were just out in the world, right? Spending time observing and living. And by doing that, they came up with something that they can have an impact on and solve. Now, inside of a company, maybe it's not going to be quite that chummy, right? But you have to have the same kind of an attitude. Now, in this case, maybe you're going to go out and observe the world around the products that you do, around some core competency that you have. And that's by and large okay. But go out and observe, right? Go out and spend time, go out and interact. If I could see companies encouraging people or even hiring people just for this purpose to go out and do that kind of work, man, would I be happier? And I don't want to imply that no company does that. There are plenty of companies, particularly in the consumer space, that do. They have full, customer feedback kind of groups that go out and that's what they do, whether they're surveying customers, interviewing customers, talking to customers, or just observing customers. They are doing that kind of work. So I don't want to imply that it doesn't exist at all. But it doesn't exist near as much as it should or could. And particularly in the business to business space, it's virtually non-existent. Particularly in the medium-sized to small-sized company space, it's virtually non-existent, at least in my experience. And so I would want people to put more of that into their DNA. I talk about this a lot, this idea of a company's DNA, and I talk about the fact that to make something a part of the company DNA, you have to give people permission to do things, right? So whether that's giving people permission to plan instead of react, and making that a requirement, that's one way to do it, right? So a lot of people, they don't do anything unless there's an urgent need to do it. So make planning an urgent need. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it really does work. If you say, hey, as a product manager or marketing manager, you're required to spend 4 hours a week offsite planning. That's what people will do because they've been given permission and they've been given that as a task that they need to go do. And the same thing will happen with customers. If you're given a task, say you need to spend at least once a week, 1 day a week, 1 day every 2 weeks, out in the field with customers, not selling to them, just observing them, talking to them, interviewing them, hanging with them. That's making that a part of your company's DNA. And if you give people permission to do that, they're going to come back with ideas that you never thought of before. It's going to just catapult you ahead of everybody else. I know it's hard to think that way and it's hard to give people permission to do that. But if you, as a company owner, company leader, or an employee of a company can find a way to do that, you're going to have a lot more success. So that's why I wanted to bring this topic back up again, because I don't think we really kind of address it from that standpoint. We gave you techniques, we gave you methodologies, but I don't know that we gave you permission. And as much as I can, I want to give you permission. So there you go. Okay, so we hope you found that answer intriguing enough to want to join us here every week on Dear Strategy, and keep coming back to hear more questions being answered. Also, go visit us at dearstrategy.net, where all of the podcasts appear, along with a blog that we do for every single podcast. So use that as a resource, sign up to our mailing list, subscribe, and you'll get notifications every time we do another episode and another blog. So really great resources and completely free. So I hope you'll take advantage of that. Also, while you're there, if you want to ask a question to be featured on the show, just click on the Ask a Question link up in the upper right-hand corner, and you'll be able to do that and take you to a contact form. You could ask a question that'll be featured on the show as well. So while you're doing all of that, don't forget to make time for the plan, and we will see you back here on another episode of Dear Strategy. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for listening to Dear Strategy with Bob Caparelli. To learn more or to submit a question to be featured on our show, please visit us at dearstrategy.net.